According to 18th century theosophists and Eastern mystics, Sanat Kumara is the name of the spiritual logos of planet Earth. The spirit of Sanat Kumara wells up from underground at certain places on planet Earth, most notably in a mythical place in the Himalayas known as Shambhala. Shambhala is one of two teaching centers where the enlightened spirits of humans, otherwise known as Buddhas, gather to teach and pray for humans and all living things on planet Earth. In 1939, Heinrich Himmler, godchild to Prince Heinrich of Bavaria and second in command to Adolf Hitler, sent an expedition to find Shambhala and capture the spiritual forces there, entrapping them forever to serve the evil agenda of the so-called master race. At certain points on the surface of planet Earth, the ether flows particularly strongly. The ether flows in set patterns across the face of our planet, and these energy waves are known in Europe as ley lines. In Australia, Aborigine people gather at Ayers Rock for ceremonies, many walking ancient paths which are the physical manifestation of these etheric ley lines. Aborigine people call them song lines. There are some places where the ether actually makes contact with the landscape. At these sacred places, huge megalithic stones have been inserted into the Earth's crust. These huge stones stimulate the flow of etheric energy, rather like an acupuncturist who inserts needles into the skin of a patient in order to stimulate the life force energy in the human body. The royal political elite throughout the ages have sought to destroy these megalithic sites with road-building programs. A good example is Avebury in Wiltshire, where several roads and an entire village have been built inside the world's largest megalithic stone circle. At Stonehenge, until very recent times, millions of taxpayers' money was spent barricading Stonehenge and preventing members of the public from visiting the site on the morning of the summer solstice. Whilst people were assaulted and attacked by the police, inside Stonehenge, a select group of aristocrats dressed as druids held ceremonies far away from the gaze of the public and press. In fact, Winston Churchill, former British Prime Minister, was actually a member of the Order of Druids. 1930s, the Nazis studied many of the ancient megalithic sites and even set up a government ministry to collect information from magicians about the occult powers which could be absorbed by performing rituals at these places. Heinrich Himmler was following in the footsteps of many groups who have tried to harness spiritual power. Himmler styled the Nazi SS on the strict secrecy and discipline of the Knights Templars. The Templars were well aware of the ether and the places on the Earth's surface where the flows of etheric energy were strongest. The Templars built huge cathedrals, which are actually Kabbalistic temples masquerading as Christian churches, at sites which line up with the placement of megalithic stones. Tibet is a theocracy. That is, a country whose ruling elite are dedicated to religious rather than political teachings. The most important person in the ruling hierarchy is the Dalai Lama, who is reincarnated into different bodies over time, and is trained from an early age to respect and understand teachings of the spirits of previous Buddhist masters. The second most important ruler of Tibet is the Panchen Lama. When Communist China invaded Tibet, they kidnapped the young Panchen Lama and replaced him with a Chinese child imposter. The third most important person in the theocracy of Tibet is known as the State Oracle. When Tibet was a free nation, elaborate ceremonies would be performed at the Potala Palace in Lhasa, where the oracle would dance himself into a frenzy, inhaling the fumes of pungent incense from semi-hallucinogenic plants. Tibetan monks would chant a hypnotic series of mantras and offer prayers to the spirits of previous ruling kings of Tibet. The oracle allowed his entire body to be possessed by spirits, who would then prophesy future events. Tibet, Ladakh, Bhutan, and India are places where special sexual magical rites are performed in order to please the spirits. This form of sexual magic is called Tantra, and it is the aim of the magician to seek communication with spirits at the point of orgasm. Ancient texts, such as the Kama Sutra, are actually textbooks describing the various positions and techniques required to reach an ecstatic state where the sexually inspired subconscious mind becomes open to the spirit world. Black magicians, such as Aleister Crowley, used sex magic as a bait to lure young initiates to his Ordo Templi Orientis. Many ancient temples employed prostitutes who resided inside the temple and would induce orgasms from the devotees. At Yale University, a sick, perverted form of sex magic is performed by initiates of the Skull and Bones secret order, which has several senior politicians and presidents as its members. The Skull and Bones rituals have been filmed by undercover journalists, and apparently specially trained prostitutes are employed for initiation ceremonies. In the film The Good Shepherd, directed by Robert De Niro, we learn that Skull and Bones initiates, known as Bonesmen, are actually recruited from aristocratic families in America, who fill the top positions of power in the FBI, White House, and CIA. Aleister Crowley used sex magic to contact various spirits who had evil intentions towards mankind. In the 17th century, a scandal was exposed at the center of the aristocratic elite in Paris, where virgins were sexually used on altars, and at the point of orgasm, their throats were cut. The Roman historian known as Josephus described a device known as the ephod, which was made of crystals and gold, and its sole purpose was to contact spirits. The ephod was a breastplate with a matrix of crystals interconnected with gold wires, and each crystal was held in a socket of gold, exactly like an electronic circuit board of today. Josephus describes this technological device as using cunning technology. The Hebrew Levite priesthood used the ephod to attain answers from spirits which were translated into a cipher language. The colors of the crystals glowed according to ectoplasmic energy infused into the ephod's crystals by spirits. The ephod was fastened at each shoulder with a large stone of onyx. The names of the 12 signs of the zodiac were engraved upon these two stones. These shoulder-mounted onyx buttons were used to show simple yes and no answers from spirits, much the same as the yes and no parts on a Ouija board. When the onyx on the right shoulder was illuminated, it signified that the spirit answered the question in the affirmative, and when the one on the left glowed, it indicated a negative answer to the query. Josephus wrote that the royal political elite of the Hebrew world consulted the spirits via the ephod before making any major decision. The ephod was known in ancient Greece as the breastplate of the oracle. The ephod is a form of occult technology based on crystals, which are used in magical rituals worldwide and are highly prized by the royal elite. The 12 jewels of the breastplate were symbolic of the 12 constellations of the zodiac. Each constellation was considered to have its own ruling alien spirit. These 12 celestial spirits are referred to in the Zohar. This book is part of the corpus of ancient texts which we now call the Kabbalah. The number 12 frequently refers to a pantheon of extraterrestrial spirits which govern the 12 major constellations. These spirits are covertly represented in the Holy Bible as the 12 prophets, the 12 patriarchs, the 12 tribes of Judah, or the 12 apostles. Rabbis of the Levite priesthood built temples especially for rituals using the ephod. These temples were often referred to as tabernacles and synagogues, and it was here that the so-called Ark of the Covenant were used. The design of the Ark of the Covenant resembles a modern battery and radio transceiver with antennas. Like a modern electronics engineer, priests attached a piece of copper to one ankle to discharge the static electricity emanating from the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, the entire temple was one large electronic device. Even the temple curtains contained 24 separate strands of metal, which aided the spiritual communication apparatus used in the ancient world. The word teraphim means disgraceful things. The teraphim were statues representing the likeness of a spirit. Inside these statues were helix structures made from magnetized metal, just like a radio antenna. According to the ancient book of Hosea, teraphim were placed on altars in many homes and used to concentrate etheric waves from the spirit world. The teraphim are often referred to in biblical texts as being used in combination with the ephod. Historical accounts from the book of Hosea tell us that when Saul or King David wished to question the Spirit of God or the celestial angels, they commanded the priest, "Bring hither the ephod and teraphim." William Bramley, in his book The Gods of Eden, claims the ephod and teraphim were a type of occult electronic device used to contact spirits of gods from the stars. On the reverse side of the ephod breastplate were two cube-shaped devices known as the Urim and Thummim. These resembled a dice and vibrated in harmony with the etheric energy received via the teraphim and ephod. The Urim and Thummim were made from magnetized stones, and the vibrations they emitted were used to clarify information received from spirits. The words Urim and Thummim mean lights and accurate truth. Joseph Smith was an American Freemason who created the Mormon Church. He claimed to own two Urim and Thummim devices. Joseph Smith's mother claimed her son inscribed and invoked the spirit of Abraxas into a magic circle. Abraxas is a demon spirit which has snakes instead of feet. The magical incantation abracadabra comes from this spirit's name. Abracadabra is the Arabic name for this demon, who is described in ancient magical texts as a king of 365 genies who in turn rule over each day of the year. Joseph Smith claimed to have gold plates inscribed with Egyptian hieroglyphs. He made several magical tablets containing ancient symbols which are traditionally used to summon spirits. Many of the symbols Joseph Smith used are copied directly from the Goetia Book of Demon Worship. Joseph Smith formed a Christian cult which became the Church of Latter-day Saints, a mixture of Freemasonry and spiritualism. In 1844, Joseph Smith attempted to become President of the United States and distributed thousands of leaflets with occult symbols. The Mormon Church is a modern version of the Levite Hebrew priesthood. Traditionally, the tribe of the Levite priesthood jealously guarded the divine instructions from spirits, which were divined using the ephod, teraphim, Urim, and Thummim. Still, to this day, occult technology is the highest secret of the elite. The ancient crystal technology of the ephod is still in use to this day. The royal political elite wear crowns which have around their circumference the exact same crystals in the same order as found in the traditional ephod breastplate. Royal crowns are actually ephods which have been fashioned to make direct contact with the skull. On the tomb of Maximilian, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, a statue can be seen wearing an ephod which has been incorporated into battle armor. This armor was not designed for battle in the physical world, but as protection against spiritual forces in the spirit world. Many crowns feature the Maltese cross, which is an emblem used worldwide by Satanists, Masonic fraternities, and magicians. The Maltese cross was the first image electronically projected using the cathode ray tube, which was developed in part by Sir William Crookes, who had formerly been a member of the Golden Dawn Secret Society and member of the Society for Psychical Research in London. The Maltese cross is featured in many sigils. Sigils are magical emblems which are etched onto a crystal ball or a black mirror and then stared at by the magician until the face of a spirit appears. In voodoo rituals, very similar sigils are etched into the ground. These are called veves, and these too feature the Maltese cross. Sigils are used to represent the names of spirits, demons, and angels. A crown is really an ephod, which has been made for the head, able to transmit spiritual communications direct into the brain of the king or queen who wears the crown. Crowns are consecrated in special ceremonies called coronations. The British crowns, owned by the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha royal family of Britain, whose family roots are in Bavaria, Germany, are part of an elaborate wardrobe of magical artifacts, which includes ceremonial knives, golden orbs, and even magic wands, which are known as sceptres. When the crown is placed on the head of a British royal, prayers and psalms are sung, which proclaim that the crown gives the wearer divine right to rule. The ceremony is an exact copy of the coronation ritual of King Solomon, who was a pre-Kabbalist magician in ancient Israel, an expert at spirit divination and demon worship.
Feel my little orisons creeping up your spine.
And lead us not into
The
temptation.
sweaty murmurs of my rosary beads, the human hearts that I've taken into hell.
The Grimoire of the Red Dragon was originally a Hebrew text and is often used by black magicians alongside another Jewish text called the First Grimoire Verum of Lucifer. In 1517, the Grimoire Verum was translated into Italian and then finally published in French by a mysterious publisher called Alibec, the Magician of Egypt. The first translation of the Verum Grimoire of Lucifer was by a Dominican Jesuit called Plangier. It has been a cherished source of demonic information amongst Jesuits since the time of the Alumbrados sect led by Ignatius Loyola, which inspired, in turn, Adam Weishaupt to form his Illuminati Masonic secret society in Bavaria during the 1700s. The Grimoire Verum includes many prayers directed towards Lucifer, and lists a hierarchy of demons which first appeared in a Kabbalistic text called the Mafteha Shelamah, which in turn became known as the Book of Light. One of the most powerful techniques for summoning spirits is the sacred magic of Abra Melin, written by Abraham the Jew during the reign of Emperor Sigismund of Germany in 1377. The magical spells were given to Abraham the Jew by an Egyptian called Abra Melin. It gives instructions on how to consecrate a piece of vellum and write upon it the names of angelic planetary spirits. When these names are called out, spirits swarm into the magician's magic circle. This book has been banned in many countries due to catastrophic events which took place in England at the turn of the 20th century. One magician wrote to the Psychic News Journal that after writing on a piece of vellum following the instructions in the grimoire of Abra Melin, his house filled with tangible darkness so intense that it was necessary to light lamps in every room, even on sunny days. In 1927, the Society for Psychical Research received reports of a British magician who accidentally summoned an invisible spirit of such immense power that it eventually manifested itself in full view, taking the form of a devil with serpents for hair.
You robber of life. You author of pain. You corrupter of justice and innocence and youth. You begetter of death.
Uriel Seraphim, Zati Zata,
Zati Zata,
Galatim Galata,
Galatim Galata.
The sacred book of Abra Melin instructs the magician on how to summon his own personal guardian angel. This guardian angel is then sent into the astral planes to find spirits which have information which the magician requests. A roadmap of the spirit world is explained, which is based on the Kabbalistic tree of life. The book even describes the process of summoning the spirit of Lucifer, the devil himself. Other demons by the names of Astaroth and Beelzebub can also be summoned using this powerful text. In London, during the 1800s, seances were held at Horniman's Museum by members of the Golden Dawn secret society who adopted many of the techniques directly from the Abra Melin text. Bram Stoker, the author of Dracula, and Aleister Crowley, the author of the Book of the Law, which in itself was dictated by spirits, both studied the sacred magic book of Abra Melin.
Blood in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Magic.
Picatrix is one of the oldest grimoires and has only recently been translated into English. The Picatrix originates from Arabia. It is one of the primary sources of information about the spirits of planets, otherwise known as angels, and how to contact demons and devils. The Picatrix was translated into Latin in 1256 and studied by King Alfonso. The king eventually bequeathed a third of his kingdoms to the Knights Templar in exchange for bringing to him the Picatrix and other magical grimoires. It was the Picatrix and other magical grimoires which inspired the Knights Templar to launch expeditions and excavate the site of King Solomon's Temple in Jerusalem. This quest became romanticized by Geoffrey of Monmouth in his medieval writings, which codenamed the collection of ancient magical teachings as the Holy Grail. The Picatrix was banned for many centuries because it not only shows you how to summon the spirit of a planet, but then goes on to show you how to implant this spirit into the head of a dead person, which is then animated using further magical spells. The head can then be questioned to give answers. Thus, the spirit of a planet can be summoned to speak through the head of a corpse. The Picatrix contains a recipe which includes the severed head of a freshly dead young man. This head would be placed in a glass vessel and pickled using a large quantity of human blood and several ounces of opium. The vessel would then be sealed and placed underground, and prayers recited to conjure a spirit to take up residence in the head of the corpse. These magically infused heads were prized possessions amongst the magicians employed by the royal elite of the Middle Ages. These heads became known as Baphomets. Often the head would be placed in ornate silver caskets, rather like religious relics, and questioned during elaborate magical ceremonies. During the heresy trials of the Knights Templar, initiates confessed that Baphomet heads were used to divine information at Templar strongholds in Paris, London, and in the south of France. The magical rites of the Templars inspired many future secret societies, many of which sought to harness the power of demons for political and financial gain. The Picatrix inspired further magical texts, such as the Testament of Solomon, a sophisticated book of demonology which describes how to summon Beelzebul, who is a demonic prince of hell. According to ancient texts authored by King Solomon, when Beelzebul was questioned as to its demonic purpose, the demonic spirit replied, "I destroy kings. I ally myself with foreign tyrants. I set demons onto men. I inspire men of God to commit wicked sins. evil heresies and lawless deeds. I inspire men to commit murder and declare war upon each other.
I will destroy the world.
After the heresies of the Knights Templar were exposed, the Templars went underground and reformed themselves into World International Freemasonry. One of the secret passwords used in Freemasonry is Beelzebul. By the 1500s, the magical texts of Arabia and the Kabbalah were in the hands of magicians advising the royal court of England.
EnigmaRadio.net.
EnigmaRadio.net.
EnigmaRadio.net. Intelligent radio for planet Earth.
EnigmaRadio.net.
EnigmaRadio.net. Intelligent radio for planet Earth.
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 Your transmitter. It's only a matter of minutes before they find us and take the station off the air.